Hi and welcome to the last in our series of videos on education. We will be talking today about the state's continuous blocking and vetoing of solutions to our problems in education today, such as providing audiovisual means for students as well as the text-based formats that currently exist. We will look at all of the technologies that are ready to be implemented and have been for a very long time, and why they haven't been. We'll look at the solutions of mass community and home educating and how we can take back control from the state and hand it back to the students and the parents themselves in regards to the curriculum that they want to learn. So Sandy's with us again.
Hi.
Hi there. So if we could start with the whole notion actually of, what on earth are the state playing out? Why does it benefit them to keep these solutions away from us?
Well, if you go back to the 1920s, that was really when text, audio and visual technology came in, and so from then onwards.
Yes, with talkie films, wasn't it?
Talkie films.
Yeah, so you could have done it back then. Before that, you could have read to the students the syllabus.
Students who had persistent literacy disabilities, of course, the curriculum could have been read to them, and it wasn't. They were usually beaten for their sort of failure to be able to learn and read, to read and write competently. So there have always been solutions to get round problems with a very mass problem with extended reading and writing. So they could have done this, basically got the courses both in text and audio visually with cameras to teachers from the 1920s onwards. And they simply haven't, they've refused to. And one has to essentially ask the reason why.
Yeah, exactly.
It is the big reason why in education. Why haven't they done this? And the answer is that once the academia or the academy put their courses, primary, SATs, GCSEs, A-levels, higher education and university courses on audiovisual, in an audiovisual format where the teachers are actually being filmed teaching the courses and in text, then people can mass home and community educate, and that will make the live teaching generally dispensable. That will make in the UK about 900 to 950,000 teachers dispensable or redundant.
Right, yeah. So I'd better interject here because I'm sure one of the big things that people would be asking at this point is what on earth would all of these teachers, the 950 to a million or so teachers that are made dispensable, what would they do? How are we going to reintegrate them into society?
Yes.
Are they going to just fall by the wayside?
Well, that of course is the big, this is one of the big preoccupations of the political class and the academic class is, hey, what's going to happen to us? Firstly, once people can mass home and community educate, the political class and the academy lose their monopoly. They lose control over education. But in addition, of course, many of them are going to lose their livelihoods. But the key thing to understand is that this system, where all the courses would actually be uploaded on web platforms from primary through to higher education, is just the system that academics would be best able, and teachers best able, to learn from themselves. So they can retrain, and I think within literally 18 months, 2 years, with their ability anyway, they will be reabsorbed into the economy.
Yeah.
So I don't think there wouldn't ever be a problem with.
Well, I'm sure there are many teachers who love teaching as their vocation, but there are a lot of the, let's say, lower bracket teachers that would have many other passions that they'd be more than happy to re-educate in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, I think you made a good point there that it's the elite, it's the senior politicians, senior civil servants, senior people within education who will most regret this change and be most resistant. In fact, the teachers on sort of £22,000-25,000 a year who are working really quite hard, this change will essentially, they will see the opportunities in these changes, I think, and they will not be actually too resistant to this happening.
And of course, the best ones of those could be the ones that facilitate this web-based platform, in that they would be the ones that we turn to upload the courses to camera.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, basically the Tyndales of the present society. I mean, Tyndale was the author of his own profession's decline. And similarly, the best teachers are going to be the most successful teachers, the ones who are getting the highest performances, who've most improved, and so on and so forth, could be selected, obviously state selected, if you liked, and their courses put up on a state platform. But you could have a parallel platform which was much more like YouTube, but for educationalists, where anyone could simply upload their courses.
So much more community-minded, people coming together, pulling together. Because actually, at the moment, you'll see on YouTube that many people upload things for others to learn from for free. You know, they don't want remuneration for it. And in fact, another point to this is that at the moment, we've talked about the quality a bit, but the tax side of things. Can you allude to that?
Well, yeah, I mean, just to slightly backtrack, I mean, obviously there could be some sort of remunerative system on the public platform.
Sure.
To sort of tide people over and so on and so forth. But yeah, from the taxation point of view, of course, once all the tedium of all the basic courses from primary school up to higher education actually filmed and uploaded onto a web platform. Yes, of course, it's going to make 950 or so thousand dispensable, redundant. But it's going to elicit about a 20%, up to 20% tax cut across the whole board for the whole of the population, which is going to be an enormous alleviation. It's going to open up how people think and what they can do, particularly the people in the two bottom quartiles. 20% is of their tax is just going to be huge. And it will have an enormous that will have an enormous effect. So we've been talking about the quality of improved quality of putting the courses onto the internet, because you'll be able to select the best teachers, and the students. It'll be multimedia because it'll be audio, visual, and text. The students will be able to pause, rewind the courses. They'll be able to, of course, get access at any time of the day. And also, the other thing is that young and old will be able to do any courses. So you'll be able to get old people coming back online and doing primary courses if they wish to do. But precocious young children will be able to start doing trades, arts, crafts courses, and of course professional courses.
Medics courses, nursing courses.
Yeah. A 9-year-old, whatever, if they were interested in being nurse or paramedic or ultimately a doctor, they could be on that course from 9 until 12, in conjunction with the other things that they're doing, be essentially a professionally trained paramedic by the time they're 12. And theoretically, you could have people turning out with full professional qualifications, pretty much near 18 or 19, and virtually the education coming down virtually free. So you get a radical reduction, not just in a radical increase in the quality of education, with people being able to get access to trades, arts, crafts education, and a professional education. So many people will be thinking in terms of a couple of trades, a couple of arts, and a more extended professional education, all being conducted before the age of 18. That's going to bring down the price of professional charges, because there are going to be more people in the market. So doctors are not going to be charging these very high prices that they do now, but I mean, doctors will be drawn back down into much more, and other professions drawn back down into much more normal type wages. 35,000 will be considered good in that sort of society.
I suppose another thing in regards to savings of money and efficiency is that each year there's an amazing amount of textbooks that are replaced, and exercise books for the students, and all of these other things, that when you have a web-based platform uploaded, then that will cut out a lot of wastage. Not to mention photocopies, paper, and such and such.
Huge amount of administrative, saving in administrative costs.
Transport.
Huge savings in transport, because people will be home and community educating. So essentially they will not be getting on these long school bus trips to and fro, or parent school runs to and fro, because all the education can come down line to them. Probably all the primary schools will still be retained as community education centres, but you will get far greater variety of children, because none of the children will need to be moving outside the area.
Well, also you'd have the school buildings themselves could be used in different ways, more alternative ways. We're not saying just bulldoze all of these buildings. And community buildings such as village halls, town halls, that have been they just go empty for months and months.
Synagogue halls,
church halls, right? Yeah, all of these places, and actual community centres, which are very underused, and have actually been, a lot of them have been closed all around the country. Could be vastly more effective and used properly. As we're not saying that these students would be left to their own devices every day, because obviously an argument the skeptics would have for this is that they'll just get online and play computer games and what have you. But obviously semi-skilled people could monitor these students in the community halls. Even the older students, didn't they used to monitor younger students in the schools?
Yes, I mean, that was very much a tradition in the 19th century, was that the sixth form and fifth form not only monitored the rather younger children, but in many cases actually took part in actually sort of educating and supervising. And of course, in this case, all the hardcore education is going to become, almost all of it, is going to be coming down line. So as you said, you only need semi-skilled people to supervise. So parents can operate a rota, people can do the monitoring pro bono, and as you say, a lot of the older students can operate a sort of supervising and overseeing perspective.
And I'm sure that would be another benefit to this, is the kind of the mixing of different age groups in terms of the children. At the moment, they're all very set, the first year, second year, third year, and they don't seem to mix very much. It's quite a competitive based, breeds bullying and other issues a lot in especially in state schools around the country. But if you had more, it seems to me anyway more community minded to have the older kids interacting with the younger kids, learning how to look after each other.
Yes,
and kind of giving respect to one another.
Well, so I mean, basically, because they will not have to go out of area to get their education, they will not be going on these extended bus trips, saving an awful lot of fuel and time and so on and so forth. The kids will be growing up much more alongside each other. They will be much more familiar with the same kids, but of all much more varying ages, and some will be able to sit online in the local community education centre, who's 18 or 30 really, next to a couple of 5-year-olds. Because they can all get their education downline. So you're not going to have this compartmentalisation of 30 years year one sitting in front of one teacher who has to educate at a particular speed for all of them.
Sure.
No, you're going to almost diametrically the opposite system, because it's not an elite taking control. It is in fact the individual parents and students and the community starting to take control, rather than an autocrat like Michael Gove taking control, or an oligarchy below him taking control of everything and saying, you will do it like this, you will all come in at 9 o'clock. No. None of that will really be...
and of course at the moment another thing that we have is the kind of elaborate hierarchy of teachers, where it breeds a certain kind of, the air of authority that students will then follow for the rest of their lives. So I think it's personally, I think it's a wonderful thing to question authority, not to just blindly accept and submit to everything that they say. So I would say that this would empower the individual a lot more as well, the individual students, to be more critically thinking and able to make better decisions about how they are interacting with society, rather than just told again, by an autocratic state, this is the way it is, and this guy in the suit's telling you this is how you live your life, and that's what you do. Which you will see if someone in a white coat, for example, says to you a certain, or a policeman in a certain coloured jacket, the luminous ones perhaps, says something, then people just blindly accept it as if they must be right. This is what it breeds. But in this more community-minded example of society, hopefully that would, over a fairly short time, that would start to change.
Yes.
Fairly radically.
Yes, I think so. I mean, once people had sort of got the concept that they could run their own public services and that they can be next to free, and people are doing things pro bono or on a rota basis and so on and so forth, this will, I think, have a knock-on effect, particularly because it's starting from age 5. This will have a knock-on effect into all the other public services, where people will be saying, well, they will be expecting to have essentially much more of either genuine qualified majority local consent or an individual informed consent.
Right, this is what I was trying to allude to there.
We're getting back to
consent.
Informed consent is really critical, isn't it, to improving the quality of services and the level of consensus. Whereas if you impose a one-size-fits-all public service, it tends to be a poorer public service.
Right. Yeah. And again, to just go back to the student, they end up seeming to go through the process of education and ending up rather resigned, puzzled, and left on the sidelines, wondering what to do. In this society we've got at the moment, that seems to happen far more regularly than would be acceptable.
People a lot of people move on an axis, so I was saying earlier, from basic puzzlement to resignation, and they move along that, back along that axis. We really want to get people off that access. And
the other thing to stress, I'd say, would be that this really is allowing people to participate in what really they're passionate about. And once you've got that, it gives people a sense of purpose. It gives them the sense of being empowered, and I think that would cut out a lot of the disaffected culture that we see around us now, and the lack of interest in community affairs, because actually, again, we're just not really allowed to participate, or we don't feel like we can participate. We don't feel like we have much of a say anymore, and therefore, a lot of disillusionment comes into play.
Yeah. And I mean, I think we were saying before earlier that you said, I hope this would mean that there would be less lawyers.
Right. Yeah. This would have a knock-on effect in so many other areas.
This led to sort of a few thoughts about that, which was that essentially at the moment
lawyers are scumbags.
That possibly are too many of them, and I think that in these circumstances, you would. I mean, at the moment, you're getting people going into courts. The two principal parties very often both coming out unsatisfied, and I would hope this sort of the notions that are developing in the education system would start to operate in other parts of the public services. So there would be a sense in which courts rooms were places where you were actually trying to get
the best outcome for all parties involved.
Trying to get a consensus, actually, about what would be or is best, so that you're essentially treating these people so that they actually come out of the court in a better condition. I mean, obviously you don't want them recidivistly recommitting crimes, but a recognition that an awful lot of the things, the ills that happen today, are to do with people's natures and nurtures. And if you can get in there and adjust those.
Again, you get less disillusionment, which leads to crime.
Yes.
Yeah.
In other words,
petty crimes, especially.
In other words, you're getting justices, lawyers, whatever, behaving slightly more like medical scientists. So that they are assessing, prescribing, getting informed consents on all sides, making sure that the community is satisfied with what is being dealt with, but also making sure that the principal parties are satisfied. So this should have a knock-on effect into all other parts of the state. And
beneficially.
And I mean, I'm not denying that there is a time and a place for everything under the sun, as they say in Ecclesiastes. So there is a time for a oligarchy. There is a time for an autocracy. If you're suddenly under attack, for instance, sometimes there has to be a sort of almost a democratic consensus to resign yourself temporarily to being organised by a single individual to resist or around some crisis to.
But again, I just have to continuously stress this, because I do think a lot of the problems and reasons countries still go about things the way they do and attack other countries. It's an old way of thinking. There are actually, we'll get into this in a moment. There are lots of solutions happening already on web platforms, especially, and if we can get it going, not just in this country but all over the place, all over the world, then a lot of what leads to wars and such would hopefully, again, over time, it would just be a sliding scale in the best possible respect. And you'd see war be hopefully eventually just obsolete.
Right. So this is the obviously the principle. I want to move on to the practical issues surrounding this, and to the BBC and the
It's
a BBC anecdote which is very illustrative of what the how the present establishment think. I've got an article here from 2001. In fact, it's April the 2nd, where the BBC is actually thinking about, very seriously and sophisticatedly, about what it should do. It's got a web platform. It has a duty to inform and entertain
and educate.
And so it was suggesting, even by 2001, that it put all the GCSE courses up on its web platform, professionally produced with its professional cameraman. So camera to teacher, cutaway obviously to diagrams and demonstrations, and the text underneath. So you're getting a multimedia format, audio, visual and text, uploading these courses, all the GCSE courses, onto their web platform, at which point people, of course, could readily and freely have downloaded any GCSE course. And I mean, I actually have a quote here. The BBC, this is after what the BBC was going to do otherwise with technology. The BBC has separate plans for a comprehensive, freestanding, quote, digital curriculum delivered by broadband online technology and covering the curriculum requirements of each of the nations of the UK. And this was with regard to, it was titled GCSE courses to go on digital TV. And this is an article from the 2nd of April 2001. So,
I'll put a link to this article in the description underneath this video for you.
Yeah. So the BBC had plans. Suddenly there was clarity. Occasionally you do see in amongst the hierarchy that there are people who are really thinking, and I actually saw this article at the time, or a very close article, and I thought, my goodness, they are actually thinking in the same way as I am. Thank goodness. But it just hasn't happened. It hasn't happened since. We are in 2014. This was a plan within months to put the GCSEs online, and it didn't happen. And I actually read another article about the same time, which I haven't been able to source since, where the BBC admitted that it had these plans and that the Department of Education had vetoed them.
Right. Yeah.
Now, the BBC then didn't investigate, didn't do a news night, which is absolutely typical of the BBC. Is the BBC will not go up and investigate what is quite clearly fraud by the Department of Education, because what the BBC was suggesting doing was going to be more efficient in terms of price, it was going to be more efficient in terms of quality, more efficient in terms of delivery.
Across the board.
And the Department of Education was just apparently vetoing the BBC, and the BBC then ducked it. Now that means that the Department of Education, the elite at the top of the Department of Education in 2001 and subsequently, are really guilty of a crime against humanity, because they are deliberately delivering in order to keep their power, to keep their 900,000 teachers employed.
One of many.
One of many. They are delivering crime against humanity, against us, entirely in their own interests. And the BBC elite, which of course were all turned over in about 2001, people like Greg Dyke were all kicked out. But
Greg
Dyke. But the subsequent BBC are all accessories in this crime. There must be people within the BBC education unit still very frustrated who had these plans and had developed these plans. And what they need is people like us really getting pretty strident, I wouldn't say militant, about this, and saying, come on, we actually want the people responsible to be hauled out and charged for a criminal conspiracy. And so the establishment begin to realise that they are under the common law and they cannot fraud ordinary people. And that will empower the more ethical people within these institutions to stand up and whistle-blow and holler when these things happen in future. Because this omission to put this system in place is actually far more serious. And as we've discussed, they could have been doing it from the 1920s. And they could have adjusted in a different way before the 1920s. This constant omission to actually serve the public and constantly serving themselves is it's a major crime.
Major crime, and it's held society back God knows how much, you know.
Yeah, I mean, back
yeah.
is a sort of understatement, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's sort of degraded us en masse. So
almost as far as farmed us, you know.
Very close.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. It's a form of eugenicism. It's appalling, and so we do need to get that message over to local teachers. I mean, individually they can't do very much. To get it over to head teachers, to get it over to politicians, anyone you happen to meet, to explain that we know what the elite at the very top are really up to, and how dim and self-interested their policies are and have been, really for
the longest time.
well, since, but certainly within, you know, let's say throughout modernity.
Absolutely.
So that's
so I wonder if we can...
BBC anecdote, I think.
Yes, yeah. And bring ourselves back. If we can just talk a little bit then about some of these wonderful things that are happening online already, such as the Khan Academy, the community-based educating that Dave Eggers is doing. These are, again, I'll put the links to these TED Talks in the description box beneath the video so that you can all view them in your own time. And these are just some of the solutions that we know already exist and are struggling to bubble up and, you know, change the way society is going. So yes, if we can talk a little bit, you know, a little bit about the Khan Academy.
Well, yeah, I mean, because the Department of Education is essentially a criminal construct, and because the BBC is an accessory in that, and of course they are subsidiary to the Cabinet Office and ultimately, theoretically, to our Parliament. Because there is a criminal construct going on there in the public sector with big government. In fact, small business has stepped in, and we are, as private individuals, are thrown back onto individual innovation. And the Khan Academy is one of the best known. I think he was an American Sikh who has built a web platform with an awful lot of courses actually available there. And I think he started it, I think in 2007 or somewhere around there. He wanted to. He was a banker, I think, and he wanted to educate his nephews and nieces. And I think he was particularly interested in mathematics.
That's right.
And he was sending off videos to them. And then he thought, well, why don't I upload these videos?
Well, he saw that it worked so well, you know, the what he was doing. So yeah, then took it up to the uploading it for mass consumption.
Yeah.
And like I say, I'll put the link on the bottom of the screen for you. The other one was is it called Education Otherwise?
Well, no. Let's get back to Khan Academy,
sorry,
because I mean, something else to be said about the Khan Academy is a lot of American school teachers now are actually getting their classes to study the courses put up online by the Khan Academy on their website in their homework. So they're basically doing the studying at home, and then they come back and essentially are monitored and tested to see whether they have actually done the learning.
And the tests are kind of computer. I can't think of the word. But then it's, again, it would be saving in administration. It's not something that teachers have to mark. The tests are kind of marked by the computer, if you see what I mean. It's all integrated.
Right.
So it's another thing that would be saving a lot of time and effort.
Yes. So of course this is a sort of one step towards what we're saying, which that's good. But if the Khan Academy if the teacher's adopting Khan Academy and actually getting the students to do the studying at home and learning, the curriculum, the subjects on the curriculum at home, well, you have to ask yourself, how much do you personally have to ask yourself. I mean, you may just make the decision that you just like to just delegate or leave the issues to the teachers, but it begs the question. How much do we need the teachers? And you've got to remember that if we do have the teachers, they come at the moment with their hierarchy, telling you what courses to study and in what mediums, and particularly, obviously, the two bottom quartiles are the people who probably would could benefit most from more choice in their curriculum. So
important just to stress one last time that the monkeys of the current system, the ones that climb to the top the quickest, who are very good with the 3R system, would not be hindered by this. They could still learn, that way if that's what they chose. But I'm sure a lot of them would choose a mixture of methods for learning.
Yes.
Apart from anything else, variety is the spice of life. So it's one of those that it's not. This wouldn't hold back the people who do well out of this already. It would include them as much as they wanted to be included. I don't think a lot of them probably don't realise. They're scared because of humanity doesn't like change. That's one thing that we've all learned over the years. But this certainly would not hold anyone back. It's very inclusive of all people.
I mean, the other person who I think we found notable was if you go on to a web platform called TED Talks and tap in a guy called Dave Eggers. He has been operating an interesting halfway house between the Khan Academy, which is just courses up online. Dave Eggers, he is from San Francisco, and he started a whole sort of chain reaction across the States and indeed, I think, elsewhere now, where he's set up basically a community-based education system, and he started in a shop in his district of San Francisco, where he was basically inviting the children in after school. They were coming in 3 or 4 o'clock and doing their homework in this essentially community centre, which was very vibrant. It was the frontage of it is actually a
pirate shop.
Pirate
supply shop.
A pirate supply shop. So it has planks and
eye patches
and
all sorts. The funny thing is, it actually started turning a profit and able to employ full-time staff and pay the rent. So that because this was a commercial building, so they had to find a use to sell something and not just use it as an education centre. Yet, obviously, because it is working, they've replicated it in other states all across America, and again, I think you're right, maybe in other places now, in other countries. Obviously, they're not all pirate supply shops, but there's some wonderful things. If you want to learn more about that, then please do look at the TED Talk, which I'll provide a link for, again, under this, in the description under this video.
I mean, he had, basically his principle was that children, after a day in school where they'd been working possibly with one teacher to 20 to a class, what he was attempting was a one-to-one for their homework. And he managed to get 1,800 volunteers.
1,400.
Up to 1,400 volunteers in his area of San Francisco. And so they were actually successfully able to give an awful lot of children one-to-one attention which
they'd never have had before
with their homework. So I mean, this was this it's a food to make you think, because it would make should make families think, well, yeah, we could do something slightly similar in our area, and it could be obviously an after-school thing, or it could be the full gamut. You could get, you only need 3 or 4 or 5 parents to start making it very practical for you to be using the Khan Academy for your courses, and a slightly Dave Egger system possibly in the afternoons for homework, where they're getting one-to-one, and you are drawing on just voluntary pro bono people to come in and perhaps do an hour one-to-one with children over their homework. So
one thing he found, wasn't it, that the kids actually got very addicted almost to completing their homework early, so that they then had the time after 5 o'clock to go home, enjoy their families, go outside, play, do all of the community-minded things that we've been discussing. And I mean, it's obviously worked because it has spread so far so quickly.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, he has obviously been doing in conjunction with the mainstream school system on the whole. And then there is a small group which has been around for a very long time in this country, which is called Education Otherwise. And essentially they've been fighting against the great mammoth of the Department of Education. These are principally women, but I mean there are some men who have been home and communicating, community educating their children for various reasons. Some of them sort of for reasons of principle, some of them because their children were being bullied at school, and so there has been a long culture of a small minority home and community educating, and they also do have a website, and there's plenty of advice on there actually for what the basics of what you can do. So basically, we're giving you food for thought for how to basically take leave to some extent of the state control and state hierarchy, as and when it suits you.
Which I would stress would be immediately.
Well, ideally, and I think most senses, because parents are facing practical problems, and I mean it is quite a big issue to basically in some way organise whilst you're working your children's education as well. But
sorry, I didn't mean to make total light of that. Yeah, of course, but yeah, get the point.
That's essentially the way that people are going, and the way it's obvious that we should be going, and it's basically the speed at which we can do it. And of course, what we really are looking for is the Tynedales, the Khans, to start getting these courses developed and up, because the more courses that are actually up and online, the more easy it does become for students and parents to take leave of state control and state charges, and the better for everyone, essentially, if it's done in a managed way.
Well, of course, we know at this point that the state aren't going to change things on their own, so it is up to us as much as we can to do this. So, yeah, for the betterment of our kids more than anything else. Yeah.
And I mean, so, and I suppose that's ties us in with the the Reformation of the 16th century, and essentially what we are talking about is an educational reformation, and it will affect, I mean, it will essentially be a huge reformation. It does start with education, and I suppose that's why we're thinking about making the title of these 3 talks
The Education Reformation.
Education Reformation.
Yes, okay, well I think that's absolutely tied it up. Brilliant. I hope you've enjoyed these. Sorry they are quite long. It is a massive, massive subject to cover. So we've tried to do our best to be very thorough and to let you know, well, pretty much what we know. Obviously we've cited quite a few references. We've given you references that you can check out for yourself. So please don't just take our word for it. Research for yourselves, and then hopefully... yeah, we've given you pointers as to where to go and make it a little easier for you. So until our next video, hope you enjoyed it, and take care of yourselves and see you soon.
Well, I'd like to say one thing is Robin's off to South America next Wednesday, so we probably won't be putting up any videos in the immediate future, but he'll be back in a couple of months' time, and we have every intention, I think, of putting up some more videos. And I've actually found the textbook that I was talking about earlier in part 2, I think, which is How to Detect and Manage Dyslexia by Philomena Ott, if you want to see how the state has really been abusing people.
Again, I'll link that in under this
with literacy
video.
disabilities consistently for over 100 years.
Okay, great. Thanks again, guys. Take care of yourselves and get busy.